Hey, what's happening? Chris Martinez. I am the host of Operation Agency Freedom. And today we have Josh Crouch from Relentless Digital on the show. We're going to spend a lot of time diving into his agency and how he has grown it tremendously and very, very fast. And he's going to talk all about training. You're going to hear about his background, where he came from, what he was doing before he started his agency that has also helped his agency a lot. So, with that being said, let's head over and listen to this awesome interview with Josh Crouch. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited. I've got Josh Crouch here from Relentless Digital coming to us live from, I think, Arizona, right? That's where you're at.
Yep,
Are
Arizona.
you, are you, what part of Arizona are you in?
We are Southeast Valley. So we're in a town that's blowing up right now. There's literally construction everywhere, even though that the everyone else says recession. In Arizona, there is no recession. Everything is just blowing up and there's houses being built everywhere. But we're in the Southeast Valley, about 40 minutes outside of Phoenix.
Okay, cool. See, I'm not very familiar with Arizona. I haven't even been there, I think, since 2019. So it's been a little bit, but I always think of Arizona just constantly growing and like people from California like moving out there.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because and we'll get into this, I'm sure, but we serve the HVAC space primarily and with a couple other trades. And there's a company out here called Gettle, which they're like a $300-400 million company now
Hmm.
in like all over the place. But the big boom happened back in like the 50s. And I was reading the story about it because it was really interesting how they started having air conditioning in people's houses and figured out a way to do this here. And literally since that time, it has been nothing but a boom in
Hmm.
Arizona. Phoenix obviously was like the big start. Now all the other surrounding suburbs are just they're still exploding everywhere.
Wow, that's cool. Well, I want to definitely start with you with your origin story. You Relentless Digital is growing very, very well, from what I know and from what you've shared with me. So great job there. I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but you don't strike me as your typical agency owner. And I mean that in a very good way, like,
Well, I hope so.
it I mean that in a good way because, and I'm seeing the business that you're building, so you and I have never really chatted about your origin story, so kinda like, where did you get your start in business? Like, where did you come from, essentially?
Yeah, and I don't actually share this on our podcast a whole lot either because we don't really talk about that stuff. But honestly, I've grown up in small family business my whole life. My dad has been in the martial arts, primarily Taekwondo, for most of my life.
Oh, wow.
Together, we obviously trained together. It was like a father son thing, and then he
Mhm.
eventually started becoming an instructor, and then decided to open his own schools. And then, of course, you know, me doing that from a young age, I've always grown up in that atmosphere. So I'd always run classes for him, helped with marketing, helped with billing, like literally all the different little facets of a small business. And it got to a point where eventually I was running a school when I was young 20s. The problem is, and I know probably Chris Rodriguez probably knows this. Sometimes there's not a whole lot of money in that. It's more of a passion
Yeah.
to teach people and stuff. It's a very difficult business because it's low cost to get. You got to get a lot of people in, and it's very difficult to really make a real living unless you have multiple schools and stuff. So I had to get a well-paying job when I started having kids, and I stumbled into the trades. I've always liked numbers and statistics and analytics and stuff like that. I thought accounting was going to be my thing, and it turned out to not be my jam at all. I love the accountants I talk to, so don't take this the wrong way. If you're an accountant, it's boring to me.
Yeah.
So, what it did is it allowed me, I got enough experience to land a job at a local HVAC company. This is back in like 2013. And from that point, I quickly realized that I loved the internal working, the operations, the sales, the marketing, the business development and growth. So I started there and I cut my teeth, really learned a lot in the last, and it's probably about 8 years or so. I've done branch management, operations management, director of sales and marketing, pretty much all the different internal things. I can't fix shit. So I don't know if I can
And this is
say that on your
specifically
podcast.
inside of an HVAC.
HVAC. Yep.
Yeah.
HVAC specific.
Okay.
Um, so I've been in the trades about 10 years now, but 8 years actually in the trades. Now I serve the trades
Yeah.
in a different capacity. But that led me to the last position I was at, where I was, instead of working on the whole business, I was mostly focused on marketing and sales and how those two things went together. And we were part of a coaching group, and I just started posting some stuff about, hey, do this, do that, this, I find success with this. And then that led to people asking for help. I had no, I've always wanted to start and run my own business. I thought it was going to be an HVAC at some point. I'd buy into a company and do that route. But I saw it as an opportunity.
Hmm.
So the first year of this business, I ran it pretty much solo with a couple contractors, and we did really well to the point I was able to quit my job. So I worked full time, and then did that on the side. And
Hmm.
that was ironically, it was started about 3 weeks before the world turned upside down.
We know exactly what you're talking about.
I feel very fortunate. I hate saying that because the whole COVID thing, because everyone's got a different story with that.
Right.
The home service wave was a big wave for went through COVID, because all of a sudden HVAC technicians, plumbers, electricians, anyone in the home services space was essentially a necessary evil. People were building out their houses, creating
Hmm.
offices, upgrading their HVAC systems. They had money to spend. Interest rates were low. It was like a perfect storm of things.
Hmm.
And so we've grown really well, and I've used the lessons from that I learned in the trades to carry over into what we do now. And that's been about 4 years in March, so a couple months from the time we're recording this.
Wow, you've only been in business for 4 years. That is
It's gone
very,
quick.
very impressive. I'm not going to share your numbers, but like, like you've kind of shared with me the rate at which you've grown and like your revenue and stuff like that. It's very, very impressive. It takes most people like a decade to get to where you're at. You've been able to do it in 4 years. So great
Well,
job.
and I think a lot of that is, so we had some coaching, and I took a lot of that coaching to learn how to do that. It was definitely a different business model, right? Because the agency space is definitely more of a MRR, monthly recurring revenue model, versus
Yes.
HVAC is a project based model. There's maintenance agreements and memberships and things like that, but it's very, very low
Right.
dollar amounts for those. So it's very hard to build up an enormous base. It takes a long time. But the lessons of, especially in HVAC, when it was, and at the time I lived in Wisconsin,
Okay.
we had sometimes very cold winters. We get very hot, humid summers, and it is all hands on deck. Like literally, you're doing nothing but just helping answer the phone and get parts to techs, like
Right.
literally running stuff to people so they can keep going. And it is all day, all weekend. And it's just,
Right.
it's very quick. Speed to lead is very
Mhm.
important. And those lessons have carried over into kind of what we do now. And I've taken that to our team. So now
Mhm.
I mean, we really focus on getting back to customers quickly,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
you've been in the agency space a long time. You know as well as I do that a lot of people, a lot of agencies, as they grow, they struggle with communication,
Yes.
customer service. They try to cut costs on the account management side, and it bites them.
Yeah.
And we hear about it all the time. And that's just one of those things that you can't cut corners on. Customer service, no matter what technology, and I know you're a big fan of AI like I am,
Yeah.
people want to talk to people.
They
They
do.
want answers to their questions.
They do.
Uh, so we have a big focus on keeping our number of accounts low, so we can ultimately really get to know our clients and not just have them be another number.
When you say keep your number of accounts low, are you talking about number of accounts per like account manager, or are you saying total
Correct.
book of business? Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
No.
clarify.
Oh no, we're looking to grow.
Okay. No, well, I have seen other
There's no.
agencies too where they say like we're only going to work with 50 clients. And actually, I've heard this. I've never met anybody who's doing this, but I've had people tell me that they know people that are doing this. They said we're going to work with 50 clients. And so every year, we're going to take our bottom five and we're going to cut them. And then those five are going to be replaced by higher value clients. And that's kind of like how they do it. But yeah,
I
I'm
do
glad that you
know.
clarified.
I do know someone, at least one person in our space, that does something similar, where they're around 50, and they like it there,
Mhm.
and they only work with bigger companies, and
Right.
it's probably it might be a little, I mean, there's always stress. We always think, "Oh, that
Mhm.
would be nice," right? But, it sounds nice.
Right. I think the challenge with that is when you have churn and some of these clients are higher value, 10, 20, 30, $50,000 a month. I mean, you lose one of those clients and you are absolutely feeling that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's a
How
balance.
well, and then if you're actively not trying to, on the marketing and sales
Right. You're not
side, get
prospecting
that
them.
many more, it's even tougher, right? Because
Yes.
it's now I gotta go find another one.
Now you're
And then if you
scrambling.
look
Yeah.
well, and honestly, 2023, if it's taught us anything, things can flip quick.
Yes.
Everyone in the homes Everyone's been riding this wave in the home services space. A lot of people have started new businesses. They're growing really fast. They really don't have any idea how to operate a successful company and tighten the belt, if
Yeah.
you will, to make sure
Yep.
their expenses don't get out of control. And they're having to cut costs. And of course, what do they look
Mhm.
at first? The thing
Marketing.
that they probably should not look at first, they
Right.
do. Well, yeah, we're going to have to save some money and we're going to have to cut some marketing expense, which usually falls on us then. And
Yep.
even if we're doing a good job, we get the axe and for no reason other than they don't know where else to cut costs.
Yeah. Yeah. The bean counters are cutting the wrong thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I see what you're saying. So one thing, as you were telling, you're kind of going back to your story, as you were telling me your story of growing up in a martial arts family, doing martial arts yourself, and then also working for HVAC. Now I'm starting to kind of see some of those differences in you that I see with a lot of other agency owners, primarily on the discipline side. And maybe you correct me if you're wrong, but you've always struck me as somebody who's very, very disciplined in your approach to things. Um, am I accurate on that? Or would you say I'm a little bit am I off?
It's funny when people say, because people see things from the outside and then you think about like what your daily grind looks like. You're like, oh, sometimes I don't feel that disciplined. Um, but again, we're sometimes we're our hardest or harshest critic.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, things have been moving in the right direction, and we do stay focused on things, and we're implementing EOS, and we go out and get coaches. We talk
Yeah.
to people like you, we talk to people like Josh Nelson. We get all
Mhm.
kinds of different coaches, so that way we can learn what we don't know.
Yeah,
Because the biggest blind spots that I've had is I've never worked at a digital marketing agency.
right.
So sometimes when we look for a role in our company, I'm like, I don't even know what it's called. I just know this person needs to do this thing.
Yeah.
And then I have to like go ask people like, what do you call this?
Right, right,
So
right,
I, so I can put a job title up and even look like what are people paying for this position? Because I have no clue.
right.
Um, and
Well,
some of that's led to a little headache, but we're figuring it out as we go.
one of the things that you mentioned to me, and I can see it as well, is the training side of it, right? Like, so you've told me that you put a big emphasis on training. Not coming from a marketing background or digital, you never worked for a digital marketing agency. How have you been able to build that training infrastructure so that you can effectively get the most out of the people that you bring on?
Well, the training part of what we do really stems from my background in HVAC because we at the last company I worked at, we were always trying to grow techs because a lot of times when you get technicians with 10, 15, 20 years of experience, which are the ones that everyone thinks they want,
Mhm.
usually if they're available, there's a reason they're
Mm.
available. And then the guys that are at the very high end, they're pretty locked in. Like they're not
Mhm.
going to go anywhere unless you really give them some sweet things or they're having problems with their boss. So the best way for us to grow was to grow with what we call green technicians or people that don't know anything. They have some skill set where maybe they have the brain to kind of figure things out or like problem solving, but
Mhm.
they're great with people. And one of our biggest success stories it was a guy, he was 42 when he started with us. He just finished a 5-year contract at UW Milwaukee as a college theater director. He'd set up sets and, you know,
Nice.
not in the trades, but
Yeah.
he had some handy skills and stuff like that. Um, really, really great guy, like one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Very great conversationalist. Came in for an interview and normally we'd say no to something like that. Like, well, they don't know the trade and we got this ramp up period and all this stuff, but we really put a lot of emphasis on training.
Mhm.
And that's technical training, that's customer service training, that's, even, hey, when you drive your van, how to park, where to park, like literally every single step of the way we had a process for, and we practiced it over and over and over again. Um, and then we also had some online training that was great that we could kind of help push them along. But
Mhm.
we trade and it was every week. It didn't matter if it was 95 and humid out or it was below zero. We trained every day on the same days from the same times.
Mhm.
And that was something that it's always stuck with me because we've been able to grow. We were able to grow technicians
Mhm.
from that point. So in the same to bring that to the agency space, obviously your internal team needs to continue to grow as well and learn new SEO tactics, web design tactics, whatever. But the client success manager or account manager is like that technician, if you will. Even though they're not maybe doing all the work, they are the person that the client knows and has to like and trust.
Mhm.
So it's super important that they know enough and they keep growing their skills so that way they can have really educated conversations. And I did never wanted our client success team to be just a customer service rep. I wanted them to be a strategist, like to actually be able to give solid advice,
Mhm.
know what the numbers mean. Hey, we should do this thing next, that sort of thing, and actually give advice so they can become like a trusted advisor.
Right.
But it takes a lot of training to get there. They got to have the confidence to talk to business owners who are spending good money with us. And, but it's consistent. It's right now it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. We do training with different topics every day. Like for instance, this is at your behest. So hopefully someone listening to this takes your advice, but we have Red Zone
Yep.
on Monday. Every Monday we go over Red Zone clients and an action plan. Tuesday is usually like technical Tuesday where we're talking about like SEO, we're talking about Google My Business, website,
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. And then Thursday is usually like role play. So we actually run the play, run the call, go over scenarios, things like that. But we do it every single week, and we don't miss it. If one of us is gone and it's running the training, somebody else runs the training. Like our director of client success was gone yesterday, and so we had one of our leads run the
Mhm.
training, the Red Zone Monday. So, but we just never miss it. We make it part of our culture, part of our team. We are going to train. We're going to continue to train. We're going to continue to find topics, and we make it a priority.
So, just to clarify with you, there are people that are listening to what you just said, and they're like, "Oh my god, how does he do that every single week?" And I'm sure it's the same time every single week. You have those 3 topics. That alone is an element of discipline that very few other agencies have. And there probably other people are listening to this right now, and they're like, "Man, how does Josh how does Josh do that? How does Josh have the discipline to be able to do that?" That's a perfect example of how I would say your experience in martial arts and, coming from your background, that's something an element of discipline that very few agencies actually have. So great job.
Yeah, yeah, it's when I hear that, I see that in the trades a lot. I'm very in tune with the markets that we serve because I came from that industry. I know a lot of people from there, but it's to me now that it's like one of those things. Like once you learn how to do something, it's like crazy that no other people are not doing that thing,
Right.
and they find a lot of excuses. I
Well,
don't
of
have
course.
time. We're too busy with calls. The thing is, if you're not training them, you're whatever you get right now is what you're always going to get. Like you're never going to get any better. And there's a lot of sayings that go along with that, like always expect what you inspect, those
Uh-huh.
sorts of things. Like
100%.
Fridays in the trades, inspect the trucks, make sure they're clean. Like you gotta have some accountability for your team and constantly be growing them. Otherwise, that's one of the big reasons they'll leave you is they're not growing. And I just read a really great book. We haven't implemented any of it yet, but I'm super excited to do it at some point. Is The Dream Manager. Have you ever read that one?
No, I haven't. I'm gonna have to put it on my list.
It's very good. It's all about really learning what motivates your team and what their dreams are. Because the
Mhm.
things that we take for granted as owners of businesses, they may just want to buy a house. They may want to
Right.
buy their first car. How can
Right.
we help them get there and put someone in place to help them make different little baby steps to get to their goals?
Right.
It's a great book. Actually, I talked to Deidre at
Jody's
Rapid,
company. Yeah.
yes, Rapid Hire Pro.
Yeah.
She's a certified dream manager. She turned me on to that book.
Oh, cool.
Really
That's
great read though.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up because, like, I think as owners, we too often look at somebody else's motivations through our lens of what motivates us. And so a lot of that times it's, money, right? So let's just take money, right? So like we might want to double, at least for me, like my goal is to double my income every single year, which I know that these are big goals. And but for somebody else, that might not be even remotely close to what they're looking to do. They might just want like an extra 5 grand. Like every other year. If they got a raise of 5 grand every other year, they might be super, super excited about that.
They may just want to take one vacation,
Exactly.
a
Right.
vacation, not many, just one, where they're
Right.
off for a week and they can afford it and they don't have to worry about like holding back. They can go do the things they want to do. But we don't know
Yes.
what those things are because we don't talk about them.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
don't get to know our people on a deep enough level to be like, to have these really intimate conversations. And that's something I'm hoping, actually, my wife loves the concept of a dream. She's the perfect person for it.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping at some point, like later in 2024, the problem is she's too valuable in sales right now. So like, but at some point, get her to the point where she is in a position where she really loves what she's doing
Right.
outside of the sales realm. But it's a great book for anyone that wants to get some
Cool.
different ideas.
We'll definitely add that to our reading list. I want to ask you some more questions about the training aspect of it, specifically the time, right? So everybody's complaint is I don't have enough time, right? It's kind of the same complaint as to why I can't go to the gym. I don't know, which is bullshit. But what are some things that you're doing, like practical things that you're doing, so that the training happens even if you're not around? Right? Like, I don't know, like if you have a chain of command as to who can run the meetings, or maybe you have people that are running the trainings and you're not really involved. You're just kind of like there. Like, how are you doing this specifically?
Yeah, I mean, for the better part of the last year and a half, outside of the last few months, I was running the training.
Mhm.
We've hired some outside people to do trainings. We hired uh, it's part of Sterling Sky, the agency that does a lot of stuff in the local U community. We hired them for 12 weeks to do weekly sessions on one of the days. So we've hired some outside help. We use things like Bright Local and their academy. There's a lot of different academies online to help get some, just bring up the base level of everybody. So that way we don't have like one person that's really up here and another one that's way down here.
Mhm.
They have a good general sense of everything and they know the same thing. So if I hand off a client to this CSM or this one, most of the time they're going to get the same answers and they're going to understand the same thing. Um, but for me, honestly, it's funny because you mentioned the gym as well. In My wife and I have tried, I don't know, probably a half dozen times over the last since 11 years we've been together where, oh, January 1, this is going to be the year. And it lasts about 3 weeks. And honestly, the biggest change we made this year is we put it on our calendar and we literally made a pact that we cannot move this for anything. Emergencies notwithstanding, but
Right.
literally, unless we're out of town, we're going to the gym at this time. And we do the same thing with training. It is the same time every single week. It recurs forever. There's no, I won't say we've never canceled one, but we try to find a way not to cancel it if
Mhm.
possible. And some of that at the beginning when it was me running most of the trains, I had to cancel them because I was out of town or
Mm.
whatever. But now that we're starting to build our team, we have a CSM that's been with us almost 2 years now. So he knows a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah.
in a pinch, he can run a training. We've also had him run as kind of a precursor, quick huddles with the other CSMs as they get onboarded, where he'll run like a 10-15 minute huddle.
Mhm.
How you guys doing? How you guys feeling today? All right, great. Let's go get the day. Like literally like a 10-minute thing
Mhm.
on the days we don't do training to just make sure everyone's good.
Good.
He's gotten to the point where his lead and he's starting I've kind of given him some different leadership podcasts and stuff to list like Craig Greschel, some different leadership type stuff where he can really start growing. But that was also something that I had to have a conversation, make sure that's what he wanted.
Mhm.
You gotta know your people. It means don't just look at them like, did they do this thing? Get to know them.
Yeah.
Have a side. It does. You do not need to take 2 hours of your day and go have a conversation. Take 15 minutes. Just get to know them, see how they're doing. I had a He's our automation specialist. He does a lot of different setup with Go High Level, Zapier, stuff like that. And
Mhm.
he's from Georgia. Him and his wife don't have kids. They're 20, he's like 26, 27.
Okay.
He wanted to literally travel and live in Europe for like 2 years. And so I said, yeah, we figured out the work hours and all that stuff, which is it's definitely a unique thing to try to figure that out.
Yeah.
He's, I think he started in Germany and then he's in the Isle of Wight. So like in the UK right now. So he's all
Okay.
over the place. And it's like, where in the world is this guy now? Cause I have no idea. But I checked, I just checked in with them. And literally the message I got at like it was like 15 minutes. I just checked it. Man, how's it going? Like, your wife happy? What, you guys enjoying yourself? What's the future look like for you guys? And he literally messaged me later that day or the next day. He's like, I've never had a boss that actually cared
Oh man, that's
about
huge.
just and it was literally it's not why I was doing it. I literally just cared and like, hey man, how's it going? Like, it's really cool what you guys are doing. How's it going? What are you guys doing? Are you guys having fun? And you just care about your people a little bit instead of look at
Mhm.
them like, because a lot of times we have a tendency to be, oh, they didn't get that thing done. We look at them like a task pusher almost like, how
Yeah.
come they didn't get that thing done? But they have things going on in their life too.
Yep.
We've had CSMs where we can tell something's not, oh, there's my wife. um, that things aren't going as well. And a lot of times she'll jump on a call with them, or if she's not available, I'll jump on a call. We'll just, what's going on? Like, we can
Yep.
tell something's not right. And there's almost always something bothering them in their personal life or outside of work.
Mhm.
They carry it with them into work. But if you don't have that level of trust, you don't start having those conversations, you can't get anywhere and you're never going to know and they're never going to open up to you.
Yeah. No, that's a huge example of your emotional intelligence, right? Of like being able to.
She's the more emotionally intelligent one.
I would say that women typically are, but the fact that you now recognize that there is something going on in the employee's personal life that can be impacting their performance in the workplace, that's a big, big step. Because I do think that a lot of, especially newer managers or leaders, people who haven't essentially like run a team before, like they will say, okay, this person needs to work just as hard as me. Nothing gets in your way, right? They need to be driven like me. And that's just not the case. Like they're never going to be you. And for all intents and purposes, that's a good thing. Because if everybody was like you, there would be a lot of blind spots. Like there'd probably be a lot more cancellations for one thing.
There would be. There
Yeah.
would be.
So it's good that they're different. We just have to have the wherewithal to be able to ask them that question is like, hey, is everything going okay? Or to even recognize and not just like point the finger and be like, oh, here we go again. This person's another idiot that I hired. Right. Like you have to actually just stop and recognize that they're a person and see if there's something else that's going on.
Well, and I think trying to focus on the wins and the things that they're doing well.
Hmm.
We and honestly, so I have a automated Slack thing that goes out every Thursday. It's just like, hey, drop your wins in the channel and stuff like that. But honestly, now we've gotten to the point where they drop the wins. Like, it doesn't matter the day of the week. I still have the reminder on there just in case it goes stagnant for a little bit. But team members are dropping wins all the time. And it's not just wins that they had. That they're really like to point out when another team member helped them out. And for us, we're 100% remote, except for my wife and I.
Hmm.
We have a couple employees in Arizona that are somewhat close. Everyone else is spread out all over the place. And keep that culture.
Speaking of I'm totally
Um,
not editing this out, by the way. Working with it
yeah,
as it is.
yeah. So, but it's super important And I lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay.
Um, that's okay. We'll figure it out.
Super
Yeah.
important to take care of our employees.
Yeah, we're taking. Well, it's just
Thank you, Brittany.
yes.
That's super important to take care of the employees and yeah,
Well,
what
where I
else?
was going, yeah, we're 100% remote. So the
Yeah.
culture is a different thing, and there's pros and cons, right? Just like anything. There's times I'm like, man, it'd be really nice to see everyone at least once or twice, 3 times a week.
Right.
I don't want to personally go into an office 5 days a week and be tied to it, but it would be nice to see everybody.
Mhm.
But keeping that culture and keeping the positivity, I
Mhm.
think people really feed off of that stuff, and you kind of see it with the memes and the gifs and everything else that come on from after that. Like they they need to they need that energetic burst,
Yeah.
something to feel good about. Because otherwise, life drags us down, man. There's so much negativity and crap out there.
Right.
If you don't have some positive sparks in your life, it's hard to keep yourself going. It
Right.
really is.
Yeah, and I think part of your responsibilities as a leader is to find ways to motivate and stay in touch with your team, right? And keep them connected to the long-term goal and the vision and things like that, right?
Yeah,
So,
100%.
we've only got a few minutes left, but I wanted to just see if you could share some practical tips or things that you've learned along the way when it comes to training. Maybe if you can give us one or two, just things that like if somebody's listening to this and they're like, I want to do what Josh is doing, what are some things that they can implement today that you know will have a big impact on their company?
Well, the first one, and I did allude to this earlier, start by putting it on your calendar. It sounds really silly. There's a motivational video on YouTube I listened to, and it's by the guy that created the Spartan races.
Hmm.
It was a clip of him, and literally he talked about the best thing you can do for yourself is put a date on the calendar where you're going to try to achieve some goal. This is more a little bit more about goal setting, but it ties into even the weekly stuff. And honestly, I've been doing a lot of went to some events recently and stuff where I'm really trying and read some books about EOS and time
Hmm.
management and stuff like that, where I'm really trying to break my day down because if I don't put it on my calendar, it just fills in with stuff. Like
Yeah.
stuff just fills in constantly and I can't focus on the big things,
Hmm.
the team, the goals, the direction of the company, the partnerships, all the things that help us grow. And it's really been it's case in point. We put the gym on the calendar. Now we've been going at it 12 months strong. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every single week. It has not failed. And I think combined, we've lost about 75, 80 pounds, toned up, gotten more muscular, feel great. That's led to us going on tons of walks and starting to live a really healthy lifestyle
Great.
versus what we were doing before, where it was like, I don't really feel like going today.
Right.
You know, put it on the calendar, commit to it because your team is worth it. And if they're not worth it, you need to find a new team. But I
Right.
think that's the biggest thing is just we're coming up. And I don't know when this is going to be released, but we're coming up on first part of the year when everyone's like, oh, I got to do these things, right? And everyone wants to push through all their goals and everything. Start there and then there are so many resources for digital marketing. Use somebody else's course, use somebody else's academy, assign the training, use ClickUp, Asana, Trello, whatever you use, assign the training, come back and talk about it the next week. Assign the next training, come back and talk. It doesn't have like we're not sitting up here with fancy PowerPoints and all this stuff. Like just as, and I'm a big believer of progress over perfection. Um, and that's where I have an ops manager that's more about perfection. Sometimes where she like stops me because I'm probably not even quite to the point of progress before I want to roll something out.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I got
You
pushback on
do.
something like that today. So.
You do. I can tell you do. But we have all these crazy ideas. We want to roll them out. It's good to have that balance. But that's really where um it doesn't have to be this elaborate thing.
Mhm.
Just get it on the calendar, assign some trainings, see how it goes. And then what's going to happen is you're going to start realizing the team has more questions. That's going to lead to more training ideas.
Mhm.
It's going to lead to its own thing. And it's okay for you to ask your team, be vulnerable. I don't know what do you guys want help with? What's going to make your life better? And be vulnerable to ask them so you can come up with training course materials.
So I was listening to Phil Jackson's book. Somebody had recommended it to me, and I wrote down one of his quotes. Leadership is not about forcing your will on others. It's about mastering the art of letting go. And this very much applies to what you just said. Sometimes you don't have to you don't have to be the one that has all the answers. Ask
Mhm.
people, right? Be vulnerable. Help them collectively find the answer, right? We don't have to be
By
the one that
asking questions.
by asking questions.
Yep.
Exactly. I love it.
It's a big ego thing for a lot of business owners. I
Mhm.
believe me, and I am nowhere near perfect on this at all. I'm actively striving to get better because I feel that stress when these questions come in or something goes wrong. I feel like I have to have the answer. And I put a lot of extra stress and pressure on myself that doesn't need to be there. We have people that are fully capable of answering these things. If I just let them do it, you just got
Yeah.
to get out of the way and say, hey, well, what would you do? And just let them answer and be like, that sounds like a good idea. Let's run with that.
Yeah. I love
Now, if
that.
they're way out base, you may need to, kind of course correct a little bit, but
Exactly.
it's just like, I hate to call adults or people that are employees as kids, but it's kind of the same thing, right? Like kids have to make mistakes to learn what not to do.
Mhm.
Sometimes the employees need to do the same thing as long as they're not costing us like clients or they're like burning the house down. Hey, I think that's a good idea. I think you should try it. Even if you know it may not be the best idea in the world, but let them try it. They'll come back and they'll be like, oh, what would you do differently?
Yeah.
And they're more open to the idea versus like if you tell them to do something, they're gonna be like, yeah, whatever. Like, they it's the same dynamic as parent and child
Yep.
because you tell your kid to do not to touch the stove. What's the kid want to do?
Don't
Touch the
touch the
stove.
stove. Yep. That
I
was
did that
me.
as a kid. That was me. I touched the stove too.
I'd be like, look,
What's gonna
I'm
happen?
touching the stove. I'm touching it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So that's my advice.
great, man. Well, thanks so much for being here and sharing your words of wisdom with everybody. If somebody happens to maybe they have a referral for you because you specialize in HVAC, or maybe they just want to connect with you and chat because you're a cool dude, what's the best way that somebody could get in contact with you?
Honestly, the best way is probably through Facebook or LinkedIn.
Okay,
I'm pretty easy to find on there, pretty active. So that's the best way. And honestly, most people on the agency side, usually Facebook is where they reach out.
cool.
Um, but yeah, that's the best way.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Everybody that's listening, listen to this one again because there's a lot of like key points where I feel like if you listen to it twice, you're going to be like, ooh, that's another thing that I didn't recognize the first time. Make that a writer downer, put it on your calendar for one thing, and then go get it done. Awesome. Thanks so much, Josh. Have a great day.
Thanks, Chris.
Hey, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to the podcast and also share it with friends, family, and basically anyone you know who will find the same value in this episode as you do. So, to get the latest from me, then let's connect on social media on the Facebooks at facebook.com/dude agency or Instagram at dudeagency.io. Then you can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and even TikTok. Yes, I'm that cool. We are on TikTok. Finally, go to our website at dudeagency.io, where you can see all of our other episodes of Operation Agency Freedom. Register for live trainings on how to run a highly profitable agency, and you can see exactly how we help marketing agencies fix their operations and scale to 8 figures and beyond. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.